You're about to see me in a different shirt and looking a little bit different with a 5 o'clock shadow because this is actually going to be part two of my conversation with Lauren Lester on how to run a law firm in 2025 about the hardware for your law firm. So technology hardware, part two. Make sure you catch part one. If you haven't listened to that yet, go ahead and cue that up next. And then this episode to take place right after that, just to make sure it all makes sense. When we originally recorded, we thought, oh, we're just going to talk for 30 minutes about hardware. And we talked for an hour. And so we split it up for you to make it easy to digest. So go ahead, make sure to listen to part one and then tune back in for this upcoming part two of hardware for how to run a law firm in 2025.
Quick question. When you use your phone, are you using the back camera or the front? Like you're facing the screen of the phone towards you, or do you have it turned around?
So I have a front-facing camera, so I have like the best version of the camera, but that's also the only way continuity camera works. And I remember the first time like they turned on the feature and it was kind of like that U2 moment where all of a sudden everyone had U2 in their iTunes, like, and I didn't even use iTunes, so like it was like that was the only thing in there. I tried to delete it. I couldn't get rid of it. I felt the same thing when continuity camera came out because I was like, every time I open a camera thing, my phone wants to be my camera. This is so annoying. And I did that for like 6 months. I was like, wait a minute. Like I caught like an image of myself, like on the camera, the way the phone was. I was like, I have color in my face. Like I'm pasty and I'm white, but like with the continuity camera compared to electric, I have color in my face. I'm gonna try to actually use this thing because you can't turn it off, but I don't recommend it. I recommend you lean into that. So another thing I wanna mention though, because it's related to the camera, is I also have these Elgato key lights. So they look like this. They're just like a little rectangle, and you could have warm light or you could have white light, and they charge super fast, like from like 0 to 100 in like an hour, and yet you could run them for several hours. And they come with really long extension cables if you want to keep them plugged in, but I don't usually talk for more than a couple hours at the longest on a video call. And I found that when I did that, it got rid of shadows from my overhead light. It brought even more color to my face. And what's cool is with the Elgato controls, like there's all these apps that and software that comes with, I can just control the lighting simultaneously with two key lights that are up on a top shelf on this desk, left and right, to adjust and play with the lighting simultaneously using this app. And so that's really cool. And you could turn them off, you could turn them on, and really cool like software hardware combo there.
Yeah.
Did your go ahead.
I was going to say, with a camera, I think having a camera placed well is critical. But I would say the 1A to that is lighting, because you could have a great camera, but if your lighting sucks, it's not, I mean, the camera's not going to help you. And that was the one thing that when I started acquiring some more hardware outside of just my computer, it was lighting and just making sure that it was bright enough. I mean, I could tell the difference as soon as you turned your two off. It's crazy how different it is. Then you turn them back on, it looks so much better. So definitely getting lighting, especially if you're not by some natural light that's consistent, is sort of that natural daylight, so that you look clear, you look like a human, you look like you've got color in your face. It makes such a difference when you're creating videos or even just being on Zoom.
Yeah, yeah. Does your camera come with software? Some of them do, some of them don't.
It doesn't. It's pretty basic in that sense. You just kind of plug it in and then the computer recognizes that there's an external camera. There is one of those lights like you just showed on top of it. So I always turn that on. And then because it's wintertime and I can't always rely, I sit next to a window, but sometimes it'll be really cloudy out or we just have short days. I did get another light that sits to the left of me that I just turn on just to give a little bit of that natural daylight. And then like you, because I like a cool background, although I get a lot of comments on my painting behind me, but I wanted some dimension. So I got recently an LED light that has different colors so that I can just sort of add a little bit more to the background. But really started, I've had just the ones that are focused on me for a long time to make sure that it comes through really clear.
Yeah, yeah, it's great to have dimension, and that is totally a content creator thing of having like a floor light or something shining up from below you or some other
I
things.
know.
It
I feel so legit now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just spoofed it in Canva. I just, like, made it look like there's like, I'm backlit, but it's totally fake. It's just totally made
But
up.
that works so well. I mean, it looks wonderful. You would never know the difference. So if you are in a space where you don't have the room or it just doesn't make sense, yeah, go onto Canva and create one. But I think like anything that has that sort of gradient, it's not just one solid color that's going to
Mhm.
look odd, but something where it gives a little bit of dimension. It makes such a difference in your videos.
Yeah, yeah, and so I've talked about, like, my small desk with a shelf in my closet, and then I have a glass desk, and you've mentioned your glass desk, but your desk is also unique in another way, so tell us more about your desk.
Yeah, so it is a standing desk or I guess an adjustable desk. So I can sit or I can raise it up. I also have a treadmill underneath it. So the days where I just need to get some movement in or I feel like I've been sitting too long, I stand it up and take the treadmill out and I'll walk and work. I am not fit enough to be able to walk and talk yet, although I'm working up to that level. But folks could definitely hear if I was walking. But I love it. It's from Costco. I randomly saw it, those like you walk into Costco and you're like, now they have this thing. It was pretty inexpensive and it works great. But yeah, I definitely would recommend for anyone who just doesn't get out or just doesn't want to sit all day. It's a really nice option to even just be able to stand. But I love my standing desk. Do you have anything like that between your two? Probably not in the closet.
I mean, you are definitely winning on that side of the ergonomic game, because I've not been able to figure that out and to make that work for the space that I have. Plus, I lucked into some furniture from a family friend whose father, who was a lawyer, passed away. They were selling the place. They needed to get rid of furniture, and so we got this nice, like, iron black and glass furniture, small desk, big desk, shelves, and that's, like, my furniture in my office. And I was doing them a favor, just, like, taking it off their hands. There's another story around that, and so folks can, because like, moving big, heavy glass shelves and desks and stuff is very, dangerous. So if you wanna hear about that story, reach out to me on LinkedIn and let me know, and maybe I'll tell that story. So, okay, so now obviously we're podcasters. There's another piece of hardware that I get the most questions about, Lauren. I don't know if you get a lot of questions about it because people think, oh, magically, like I get a fancy microphone and I will sound amazing. And that's not true. Where you're recording and the setup in that space and how that is sound treated will make a better impact on how you sound. So, like, you don't need expensive microphones. I started with like a cheap on super on sale Blue Yeti microphone like many, many years ago, like 2017, when I started dabbling with podcasting. And I've since upgraded to a Shure MV7 because it was modular in that I could start with USB connection, USB-C into my computer, and then I could upgrade to XLR when I was ready to get that audio mixer and significantly upgrade my setup. So started with a cheap one, upgraded eventually to the better one. What was your microphone experience like?
So for a very long time, I just used the headphones that Mac gives you when I wasn't doing podcasting. And then my husband several years ago, one of his coworkers got the fancy mic and he just decided to get it for me for Christmas. So I didn't actually do it myself. I was just gifted this nice microphone. But I did notice a difference in the quality, but I will say where you record, I think is going to make the most difference. I don't have a space in my house where it's really small. I actually work in a really big room. And so having the better mic, I think made my voice and the sound quality better. But he just bought it's a Rode mic. I have a little stand that it sits on. I put it to the side when I'm not using it. And then the only, I think, knock on it is it's not, at least this version of it is not the USB. So I can't directly plug it into my computer. So there's this little box, and this is like where it gets above my head. I think I Googled, like, how do I make this work with my Mac? And somebody was like, buy this box. And I said, thank you so much. So it plugs into the box, and then the box plugs into my computer and that's how it works. But I love it. Folks always, every time I get on a like non-podcasting call, I always get a comment of like, "Look at that microphone! You must have a podcast." I'm like, "I do actually. Let me tell you about it." So it works really well. Folks always say they can hear me. I use it when I have a voiceover. We'll get to software for my phone, so my phone is through the internet as well. Everyone can always hear me really clearly. So I think it's nice. I don't think it's absolutely critical, but if you are kind of dabbling in that space or wanting to push more into content creation or video production and you can justify it from an expense standpoint, I think it's a nice upgrade.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also have good mic technique as far as I could tell, because I can't exactly see in 3 dimensions in this two-dimensional screen, but you want about a hang loose distance. So if you
Yes.
extend your thumb and your pinky out and you get it between you want that between your mic and your mouth. And if you're about that distance away, then that's good mic technique. And every single microphone is a little bit different. Some are receiving on the top of the microphone. Some are receiving on the side of the microphone. Some have different settings that change where it's receiving from based upon the setting on the microphone. That could be a software setting based on the software it comes with. That could be a hardware setting where it's a literal switch or nozzle or something like a wheel on the microphone. So it there's tons of YouTube videos that you can watch about like how do I use this microphone and like really leverage it well. And there are also some audio and sound engineers out there that will like give you an hour of their time to critique your space for like a few $100. And so if you really wanted to sound professional and get things set up well, you could consult with one of them. I've done that, and that's kind of how I've learned some of these things. So I think it's a worthwhile investment if you're going to be leveraging these tools all the time.
Where is
And
your microphone? Because I never see it. Mine's always at the very bottom of my screen because that's where it sits so that it picks me up. But yours is hidden. So I have to imagine it's nearby, but not on screen.
yeah, and this link will be in my show notes for sure. And Lauren, I'll give the link to you. So if you wanted to put that in your show notes
Yeah.
as well, you could do that. But my consulting company, Curbisverse LLC, it has a website, curbisverse.com. That's my last name and verse like universe. I used to say like metaverse until that didn't become a thing, and it might again. And then it's /hashtag because of the website builder I'm using. That's how it's set up. Podcast stuff. And if you go to that link, you'll see I have like the podcasting stuff that I do. And that includes on there my Podcasting for Lawyers CLE, all the podcasts that I host and produced. And it has a podcast studio setup link. And so that link goes to a PDF with clickable links of all the hardware I use for the podcast. And so on there is a ceiling mount. Because think about these microphones, they're highly sensitive, right? They're picking up vibrations, they're picking up everything. In particular, when you start to spend over $200 on these things. And that's like you could spend $1,000 easily on a super nice microphone. You don't need that if you're a lawyer. 200 to 300 is a great range to get a super high quality microphone if you buy the right one. So I have a ceiling mount where using, the plastic things that come with the screws, the anchors.
Anchors? Yeah.
Yeah. So I have the anchors in the ceiling because there's not I wasn't able to find like
The stud.
a stud, right.
Yeah.
Lauren, you know your stuff. You must be pretty handy.
Yes, I do. I have a whole workshop out in my garage.
And so like I have it mounted from the ceiling and then a boom arm. So you've seen like the podcasters, Joe Rogan and all those, like they have like big boom arms is what they're called, where you could swivel a mic and like get its positioning to get close to your mouth in front of your mouth. I've a medium sized one of those. And I got a better, like a slightly more expensive one because this is hanging like above my stuff and I don't want it to fall. But by hanging it from the ceiling, and then I have that on a shock mount, which again is supposed to absorb vibrations so that the mic doesn't pick up vibrations. And those are relatively inexpensive. They design ones that are specifically for that type of microphone. Again, I'm not a professional voice recorder or singer, so I don't like a voiceover artist. I don't need that. So I just got like a cheap one that had good reviews on Amazon, and that's on my list. And then I have my microphone plugged into that. And so it's hanging from the ceiling. It is just off camera. And so you can't see it because at the end of the day, and I give this my Podcasting for Lawyers talk, like we are professionals and people do think it's cool to see a microphone. And Lauren, yours is like just a barely of a sliver on camera. So it's not like I've seen some lawyers where they have the microphone like covering half their face.
Right.
And maybe for that mic, that's the way you have to have it to make it pick up your voice appropriately without picking up a bunch of room sound. And we could get into gain and we could get into mixers and we could get all these things. And I'm not going to because that's like that's a whole other conversation. But I have it plugged into an audio mixer and I have using an XLR cable. Those are those specialized microphone cables. And I have that cable going into it's called a cloud lifter because I noticed that like my voice, I had to really turn up the gain so that you could hear me clearly if I wanted my mic off camera and further away from me. Because with these Shure MV7s, you're like you're really supposed to have them like right up close to your mouth, and I didn't want to do that. So by spending it was like $150 on this cloud lifter, now I could be further away and it gives you extra dBs, like decibels. Like it makes your voice sound fuller and gives more color to your voice while allowing me to keep my microphone just a little bit further away from my mouth to stay off camera. Because, and there's an aesthetic to it, and maybe you want that aesthetic, but for me, practicing lawyer, I don't want my microphone in front of my face, and that's the way that I've been able to do that.
No, that's really smart. That's so cool. My ceilings, I don't know, maybe I could get it up there. It feels like it'd be so much further away, but that's good to know that if it's further away than maybe the manufacturer was expecting it to be closer to your mouth, you might have to add some additional hardware to make sure it sounds good.
Right, right. And look, this episode's going a little long. I figured it would, but we're trying to keep these relatively short so you can get back to your day. And so I am just going to rapid fire some things here that I think are important when it comes to the hardware stuff. So, Lauren, you might be able to benefit from this if you're not already using this already, but there's something called a bass trap, like bass, like, increase that bass. Let's feel that bass. So, a bass trap, they go into like the corner of a ceiling and there's some special glue or some special tape, and so that like absorbs a little bit of the sound because you don't want to absorb all the sound. You don't want it to sound artificial, but you want some sound absorption to like, and that's called like having like a sound treated room. You can get sound blankets, which I have. You get panels, which I have on the ceiling and partially on my wall in the studio. And in my office, because I'm still taking calls out there in my main office, I have these bass traps in the corner of the ceiling, and that sort of just helps soften the sound a little bit and not make it so harsh and bouncing off the corners of the room, because sound will do that. It will bounce from everywhere. So that's something to look up. Foam panels are the other things, absorption sheets or absorption blankets. My green screen is actually a blanket, but Elgato also sells these things that I used to use when I was in an apartment before we got a house. That's just like it comes up it's like a big packaged thing, and it's like a green screen that like just folds down, and you could store it under a couch or behind a couch or something, and you could pull up a green screen. So I don't really use that anymore, but if you're in a situation where you can't find like a soundproof blanket, those green screens are really great. I have like cables up the wazoo because I try to keep anything that generates heat other than these lights outside of my studio. And that includes my actual Mac Mini M4 Pro, which I just got a few weeks ago as of us recording. So I can't speak to like, is it doing anything special? But I could tell you I'm getting zero chugging, zero lag. Everything is running super smoothly compared to when I had the M1 Mac Mini. So that's all I'll say about that. But I have all these cables running into it. It's all USB-C, but I still have some USB-C extensions and adapters because I have so many cables plugging into my computer. And I found that there is one cable that's not on this equipment. It's called like Angus Play, I think, just spelled just like that. And they have a 16.4-foot cable that transfers 4K video and audio and like up to 10 gigabits per second. And so there are faster cables and higher quality cables, but that's the longest, highest quality cable I was able to find. And it's USB-C to USB-C, because if you do USB-C to A, if you do like, not all cables are treated the same. So which cables you buy matter. And then the last thing I'll say about the hardware setup is I have these behind the ear headphones, and they're clear. And if I had hair, you wouldn't even be able to see that I'm wearing headphones, right? But by having headphones, it prevents audio feedback where like the person speaking goes into your microphone. In particular, when you have a microphone like Lauren and I have, if you just aren't using headphones, like your microphone will pick it up and send it back, and there'll be some feedback, right? So like you don't want to do that. So you need headphones. So I have an extension cable for my headphones that goes like around and back and up my desk and like tied to all these things to prevent vibrations and like absorb vibration, and then plugged into my microphone, directly into my microphone. I could plug it directly into my audio mixer, but I choose not to because of some of the tech setup, like for like what works and what doesn't work with hardware. And like Google Chrome like doesn't like the audio mixers. So I still have my microphone plugged into USB-C to my computer for situations where I want to use my mic, but it doesn't work well. Like it doesn't play well with Chrome. So you will run into some hardware problems. And if this sounds like all too much for you, don't worry about it. Like that's why we're sort of saving this part for the end, because this is like overkill possibly for practicing law. But at the same time, the behind the ear headphones, even if you're just using a laptop and the laptop camera and the laptop microphone, get these behind the ear earbuds. They're MEE, like capital M, capital E, capital E. I can't remember exactly what the rest of the title is, but if you search that brand, clear behind the ear headphones, you'll find it. And get an extension cable so that you could go put it behind your back from your laptop, and they loop right over your ears. And unless you're really close to the camera or turn your head side to side, you can't really make it out. And they're like $12 or $13. And so you can't beat that price for having a more professional appearance on camera.
I love that. I'm buying those today.
I have 3 pair because one of them did break for me, and that's my fault. I had it for like over 3 years before it broke. So I have backups because they're so cheap. I mean, like buy 2, right?
Right. Right.
So that's it for me on the hardware. Any final things from you on the hardware side, Lauren?
No, I think we covered it all. I think you can have a really basic setup that gets the job done, but obviously sky's the limit. But really just decide what kind of works for you and what you're wanting to do. But you do not have to go crazy, which is the good news, to be able to run a virtual successful law firm.
Love it. Ethernet cable. Let's just throw that out there. Hardwired over wireless that includes your internet. Thanks everybody so much. This was our hardware talk. Next up, software. Yum yum.